All right, everybody, how you doing out there? We got a new update from our man Sam. He's going to tell us a little bit about what is going on in the world of Warcraft numbers. So, one of the things we always try to find out is what is the player base like? What is it? What's going on with everybody? How many people are actually playing the game? What kind of content is it that they're doing? So, I thought we'd listen to this a little bit and find out.
Official numbers for the March on Quel'Danas Mythic raid. That's right. We're going to look at the Mythic breakdown of how the current DPS charts are looking. Also, Mythic Plus, a full breakdown of the statistics, what the easiest dungeons are, who's pumping, who's not. Let's just go ahead and dive straight in. A quick news run around before we get into that. We got another world boss active today, post reset. His name is Predaxis. That's right, the three-headed gobbler himself. And you can go kill him out in Voidstorm. So make sure you go do that. Get your free piece of account-bound champion gear for that alt you never play. March on Quel'Danas raid.
Well, we play them here because this is alt central. So this is where we definitely want to get some gear for our alts. All right, so don't let this boss go by. For whatever, you might not have it leveled to 90 yet, but who knows? Maybe by the end, by a 0.3 patch, you might have enough time and enough interest to do that.
Finder and story mode are also now available for the people out there who don't like to play this game the way it's intended to be played. So go out there, do your raid finder, get your minimum 220 item level before you get in there. That's the only way you'll be able to queue for this thing. If you don't want to worry about that and just want to play it on an even easier mode, you can of course go run through story mode, right? Running through story mode will allow you to go ahead and get this shit, get the quest.
Has anybody ever run the whole raid on story mode? I haven't. I've only I have done it, I think, for the last portion, but that's it.
259 hero gear cache. That's right. You guys can get your cache of 259 hero gear automatically this week because the dungeon event is live. All you got to do is go acquire the quest Emissary of War for Archmage at this Sunreaver. Getting that will allow you to do the whole complete 4 dungeons and get your cache. Again, this is heroic raid gear, non-tier raid gear that you can get from this cache. All you got to do is complete 4 dungeons. Now, Mythic Zeros, Heroics, and Normals all count, and actually there is a buff to the end of dungeon loot for all of those things through the Sign of the Warrior buff this week, so you can get extra loot. That buff does not apply to Mythic Plus dungeons, so if you're worried about... KSG, thank you for the follow, man. Welcome to our Scourge. If you don't give a shit about your vault and you just want to do those things for the extra gear because right now you're not geared enough to actually, push keys very high, then you could do it that way. But honestly, the correct way to do this is just do Mythic Plus runs. It counts towards the quest, and you're filling out your vault at the same time, and you'll get your free cash. So
I think most of the people that wouldn't be running nothing but just Mythic Zeros would be, the people that we talked about just a few days ago who aren't really into the whole 3 pillars, but they do value power, so that helps them in the world of Azeroth, getting through their quests, getting through their delves maybe. So
a nice little boost to dungeon running this week. Algathar Academy is a little bit easier by 1 minute as well. A quick little hotfix went into effect.
I did see that today. They raised it by 1 minute.
During reset, it is now a 30-minute timer rather than a 29-minute timer. So if you are running low on completing this thing, we're going to look at completion rates here in a second. But now you got 1 extra minute to finish this dungeon out in particular. Arena World Champions also begins. So the kickoff for Arena World Championships has begun. Man, this thing brings back nostalgia.
300
every time Arena World Championships kick off. I remember seasons 2 and 3 when I was a Gladiator champion. I'm just not as quick as I used to be in this game anymore. So I can't. I don't compete in these things anymore. But back in the day, your boys.
I don't know. You know what? And one of the things about doing PvP for me, I'm so competitive. I hate dying. I would rage. I would rage for
Sammy
sure.
was a freaking gladiator, believe it or not. So these AWC Cups are kicking off. That's right. We got the first round and everything. The brackets up and running. April 10th, the first round of the Cup actually begins. So check it out if you want to on Twitch or YouTube, World of Warcraft's live channel. We'll have this thing up and running if you want to check it out. The final quest line, believe it or not, guys, that's it. Midnight's wrapped up. Well, at least the main storyline for the start of Midnight is we're starting to get some little story breadcrumbs that are going to lead us into the last Titan. But for now, we have the final chapter of Midnight's Endgame Raid campaign now available. When you guys log in post-reset, you'll be able to do the Reconciliation questline. This thing will take you through Silver Moon, how they're going to deal with the Sunwell. I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, but you go make friends with all the elves, and everybody learns how to live in Silver Moon in peace and prosperity. And there's something they're going to do with the Sunwell. Now the Dark Well, right? So it's the Sunwell, now the Dark Well. We'll see what kind of well it becomes after all these quest lines are completed, but you can go ahead and do that now, post-reset. And now it's time to dive into the numbers, boys. The moment you've all been waiting for. Since the first week of Mythic Raid was now open, we can finally look at the full breakdown of DPS charts, what the numbers look like, how's everyone panning out, and get into this shit. So let's check this out. We have our overall damage for Raid. Okay, overall damage for Raid. We're looking now at how the breakdown looks. This includes
Everybody knew, I'm pretty sure most of you knew that the Devourer Demon Hunter was going to be a very prominent damage doer, because that is the new toy that we've been given, and they want to make sure that the class shines. So they're going to make sure that it does its job, not dying as often, being a little tanky, doing some big damn. And it looks like they did that, especially for Raid right now.
AoE and everything else, and we see Devourer Demon Hunter sitting at the very top, having a great old time there. Devourer Demon Hunter, the new class, the new spec, I should say, for this expansion, doing really well right now. There were a couple changes that went into effect for them, and I think everything's just hitting right. They're hitting their stride. So Devourer's doing really good. Survival Hunter just behind them. Demonology Warlock, Marksmanship Hunter, Augmentation Evoker, Furry Warriors making a big comeback so far. That looks pretty good for them. Devastation Evoker. We got 2 Evokers sitting in the top 10. Look at that, man. Evokers are eating well this expansion.
Yeah, I was listening to, I believe, The Bench, and they were speaking on how Augmentation is coming back and making a huge comeback. I think Squishy's the one that's playing the Augmentation Evoker, and just saying how he feels really good about the class. And it's great until people start complaining about it. And then, of course, everybody's going to start hating on the class. And then Blizzard will probably start listening a little bit more, and saying, okay, well, maybe we put it up too high. Because we all remember when Augmentation was first introduced as the supporting class, it was meta. You really didn't want to do a lot of high keys without one, because it did that much for the group itself. So it's good to see that they have been able to remedy, and that it did not go basically just a throwaway class or spec into the bin.
Havoc Demon Hunter right behind him. Arms Warrior, Destro Warlock.
I'm really glad to see that they've done Havoc right. They didn't just prop up Devour with the new spec and all. They did make some actual changes for Havoc that are making it very competitive. I used to main Demon Hunter Havoc specifically, and I missed it because I moved away from it when they had the whole, to do big damn, you needed to be the momentum build. So I'm glad to see that they've done some right. I think in the spec that they have it, though, for Havoc, it is more along the way of being in momentum. I'll have to get back into it and play it and let you guys know. And then looking at this Retribution Paladin, that's where I, that's where I have pitched my flag at. That's what I'm currently maining. In the middle of the pack, doesn't look like it's doing too bad. I did some dungeons yesterday. I feel confident in my M+ performance. Where I hear they lack at, and where this is Raid. So even being in the middle, not that bad. I could live with that.
Shadow Priest, and then Retribution Paladin hitting that midway mark. If we start from the bottom here, we see Frosty K. To move my little camera, Frosty K sitting at the bottom. Feral Druid, Ass Rogue, Enhancement Shaman, Elemental Shaman. As good as Augmentation, as good as the Evokers are doing, Shaman's doing the opposite. Man, look at that shit DPS. What the hell? Outlaw.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. That is crazy, because I also, as one of my main alts, I have a Shaman, but I do Resto on the Shaman. I always was hearing great things about Elemental and Enhancement. I'm surprised. Maybe the representation isn't there, and maybe the people that are playing it are playing it at that well of a skill level. Maybe.
Rogue, Sub-Titty Rogue. Look at the bottom. Okay, look at the bottom ones right now. This is pretty stacked up. I don't know if I've ever seen this before. You basically got your bottom 9 here or 8. Of your bottom 8, 3 classes make up the entirety of the bottom 8. Except if you take out Feral Druid, which is also just always, relinquished to the bottom.
I think that's just, and like I said, representation. I got to get that word, representation. It's just not there for Feral. A lot of people do not play that class. Same thing can be said for Rogue, because the Echo Chamber always is about how they are not a very popular class. Very hard to get invited to groups if you are a Rogue or a Feral Druid. But one of the ones that I didn't expect was going to be Unholy Death Knight, that's down near the bottom. I've always heard good tuning passes about Unholy Death Knight, to the point where I thought it was going to be S tier. So I think it's about the amount of players that are going to be playing these classes that really give these things their numbers. How many of them are playing? And even by that, with Devour being the outlier at the very top, they are not that bad. Quite honestly, they're not that bad.
You got both Death Knight specs, all 3 Rogue specs, and both Shaman specs sitting here at the bottom. What the hell's going on? Usually at least one of these are viable. None of them? This is overall damage now, so we'll check out single target, see if any of them are actually pumping really. Yeah, they're doing Shamans dirty. Yeah, they sure are. And same with Rogues. I've been hearing Rogues complain quite a lot. So these are the numbers for overall late damage. Let's see if any of them are doing better in single target. So there you go. Unholy completely flipping the script when you look at single target damage, so they're not doing so bad. Rogues also ass pumping up here. So let's go down here from the order. We're starting out Augmentation Evoker is your number 1 single target damage dealer right now. Unholy DK right behind them. Marksmanship Hunter, Ass Rogue, Frost Mage, Demonology Warlock, Shadow Priest, Arms Warrior, Devourer Demon Hunter, Retribution Paladin, Feral Druid sitting there at the mid-tier.
Okay.
And then at the very bottom here, we see still Enhancement Shaman sitting at the bottom. I mean, Enhancement Shaman is just not getting a break. You can't play Enhancement right now. That's basically what's going on. Arcane Mage, Furry Warrior, Outlaw Rogue, Survival Hunter, Balanced Druid, Sub-Titty Rogue, Devastation of Rogue.
Now, I haven't done the raid that much, so maybe you guys could tell me, is it just better? Because I think I have heard melee is not really something you want in raid. You want more of the range classes in raid. I could be wrong. Let me know. But that could be another reason why enhancement and some of these classes like Subtlety Rogue, Feral, well, Feral's up there. Okay. Fury Warrior, Outlaw Rogue, Survival Hunter. So you got 6 classes that are like below the C tier.
Broker, Frost, Death Knight, Beast Mastery Hunter. I should say Bestiality Hunter. So those are your guys. In the middle, we see Fire Mage and Windwalker Monk sitting there mid-tier. Kind of a flip of the script, actually. I mean, the way some of these classes, we saw Ass and Unholy Death Knight sitting there at the very bottom with the overall, but then in single target, they're absolutely pumping. I don't know if I've ever seen Augmentation as the leader. That's a nice little one for them, nice little payout. Anyone who's stuck with Augmentation Evoker through the hard times, you're eating pretty good now. So Augmentation sitting there at the very top for single target damage. I can vouch for a lot of these classes. They are pumping quite hard right now in raids, so that's nice to look at. We're going to use these numbers going forward to kind of base where people are moving, but this week we have no movers up and down because this is the first week of stats that we're getting. But let's move on to look at Mythic Plus numbers, okay? Mythic Plus, obviously a big part of the end game as well. Let's check out what the meta is, how the current dungeons are looking, what the completion rate.
Now, this really helps me because when I'm doing my own keys, which I usually do over on Achilles_1970 on Twitch and YouTube, this is what I generally will look at.
It is and everything else. So looking right now, the top keys are being pushed. We got the top key was a plus 20 for the recent week 2 run. That group was made up mainly of Brewmaster Monks, Unholy Death Knights, Restoration Druids, Augmentation Evoker, no surprise there. We just said they're doing great. Demonology Warlock and Devour Demon Hunters. So those are your guys. What was the healer? Yeah, Restoration Druid, S tier healer right now, and Brewmaster Monk, no surprise there. They are currently the best tank in the game. So looking across the board, this meta is kind of what we expected. Looking at the
now, I know that they recently did a nerf to Brewmaster and the way that they heal, so we'll see if that makes a huge difference on what next week's numbers look like. But I believe that is something that they were going to try and bring them down and bring the other tanks up a little bit. Everybody was hoping that they would just leave Brewmaster alone and bring the other tanks up. I know they recently gave Prop Paladin a buff on survivability against magic damage. We'll see if that's any help for them when it comes to doing the Mythic Plus and the representation there.
DPS charts and everything else, and then knowing that Brewmaster Monk and Restoration Druids are their respective roles sitting currently at the best. Let's look at the current runs, right? The run breakdown. We see Windrunner Spire is currently seen as the easiest dungeon to complete, sitting there at the very top with the most runs done, followed by Algathar Academy, which actually was second most done, but has a higher break rate. Less people completing this one, but still an overall completion rate that's really high. You'll notice that that's a theme across the board here. People are completing these things at like record rates right now for an early.
I think the breaking was because, of course, the timer needed maybe that 1 minute. Needed that 1 minute added, so it was as of the numbers here, that was 29 minutes versus the 30 that you'll have this week.
Season run. It's just an easier season overall. So as I was saying before, we got Algathar Academy sitting in second place for the most runs. Follow that up by why isn't my fucking mouse working now? I gotta refresh this shit. Okay, there we go. Nexus Point Xanax is number 3. Then we see Pit of Sauron at 4, Skyreach at 5, Magister's Terrace at 6, Seat of the Triumvirate at 7, and then your hardest dungeon, the one people like doing the least, Myasar Caverns, sitting there at the very bottom, and actually a decent drop-off from Seat of the Triumvirate to Myasar Caverns. People just not liking that.
Yeah, for the rest of them, they look very, very even, you know, with the outlier being the one in the beginning and the one at the end. So it's good to see, you know, Windrunner Spires. I just did that one yesterday, not that hard. Not that hard. I think the hardest thing is, you know, don't kill the council, which is the him and her. Don't kill them because you got to make sure they die at the same time. Otherwise, the other one enrages.
Run, I guess, or they're just not getting that
We
key
always
a
get
lot.
that.
But overall, looking at these, we can see the highest fail rate actually goes to Algathar Academy, which is sitting in second place. I don't know how people are failing that dungeon, to be honest. It's a pretty easy one. I think that tree boss still gives people problems early in the dungeon. I don't know what it is. He's just a difficult boss to deal with the seeds and shit for some reason. So that one hurting people. And then the second highest break rate is Myasar Caverns, the one that's currently sitting at the bottom. The most run keys for the week, plus 10s. No shocker there. People filling out their vaults. That is by far and away the highest key runs right now. The highest key we've seen, what is this, completed? A Mythic 17. I think there were some 20 runs, but 17 looks like the highest rate of keys being completed at a decent number. For the most part, the majority of WoW players right now are doing plus 10s, 11s, and 12s. It seems like 90% of the player base at least doing those. Mythic Plus participation for week 1 to week 2. There's a participation drop off, but that's not a surprise because the raids opening up and everything else. A lot of people are raiding right now, so there's a slight drop off from week 1 to week 2, but I don't think that's anything to worry about. Overall, looking at these numbers, I think it looks like a decently healthy season so far. At the good completion rates. You know, Blizzard said they would make this shit easier post add-ons, so I think they're having a good time with the way they kind of balance things out. We just saw Algathar Academy get a little 1 minute boost, so maybe we'll see better completion rates for that one. That's probably actually why they put that change in. Myasar Caverns is Cancer. Yeah, it looks like people aren't enjoying that one. And then I really tried to like Aug Evoker, but there's something weird about their rotation, no fluidity. I don't know if it's a reactionary. I'll be honest, I've never played Augie at all. That's why people, Academy got the 1 extra minute. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, J-Mal. It makes sense why Blizzard made that change that we were just talking about, adding the 1 minute there. So we'll continue to monitor these dungeons week to week. We'll also monitor DPS outputs and the meta, of course. This is your place for all the WoW news. But for today, that is all. In terms of news.
That is all in terms of news. Fantastic video by our man Samiccus. I enjoy always watching his content. We definitely are going to be getting into the keys here. We'll be learning a lot more about the keys, and you know, if you guys need help filling up your vaults, we do have an awesome community for that we also do every single day. So stop in. Like I said, go to Twitch Achilles _1970. Both on YouTube and on Twitch. You'll find one of me somewhere there live. All right. So by all means, come back again.